Welcome back to Joe's Motoventure. Today I'm working on something I'm pretty excited about. One of the things I don't like about this bike, that I'm not pleased with how Harley put these bikes out, is the interfering on these. So they're just raw plastic on the standard Street Glide and Road Glide from 2024 and up. And it's one of the biggest complaints you'll see about these. Back in 2014, they came out with the Street Glide Special, and then in 2015, the Road Glide Special. And they had painted interferings along with some other upgrades over the standards. The one thing that they carried over from the Special to the now just standard models was that you could get a blacked out trim or a chrome trim. And the one thing that they should have carried over that they didn't was a painted interfering. So these raw plastic ones, I mean, it's been proven over and over on the old standards that they fade over time. They get UV damage and they just don't look good. And to me, on this bike, it just looks unfinished. And so I'm going to correct that. I'm going with Vivid Black. I'm not going to do paint match to the white. It's just too much for me. It's a little too flashy for my style. They do look good. I've seen one of these white Road Glides with the white interfering, and it does look good. But I want to go with just Vivid Black, a nice gloss black look. And so I'm gonna tear it all apart and get all this stuff out to the painter, and I'll bring you in closer and show you what all we're planning on painting. So the plan is to obviously have the interfering painted, which is the biggest part here, but then also the speaker grills, the door covers on both sides, the what's called a nacelle, or you call it the riser clamshell. Get that painted black, and then the vent up here, and then the windshield brackets. So all that stuff that is currently just raw plastic, we plan on going gloss black with. So I don't plan on making you watch me take every nut and bolt off this thing, but I will point out where the hardware is, what sizes you need, and just so you know what you need to do if you want to tackle this yourself. To start with, we have the windshield, which is two T25s on both sides. Pretty simple. Okay, from there, there's a windshield bracket on each side. There's 3 screws holding that on, and they're all T25 as well. Okay, now we're ready to take this front trim piece off. There's like a snap clip on each side. So we've just got a plastic pry tool here, and you just got to get in behind it and pop it off. That comes off. And then this piece just slides right out. So next will be the speaker grills, and they're also held in with clips. So if you get up in this top corner, and it feels like it wants to break, but trust me, it won't. So there's a clip here and a clip here, and then there's tabs on the bottom that fit down in these grooves down here. Okay, so normally to get the outer fairing off, you only have to take, I believe it's the bottom screw out to get these vents off, or these side louvers. But because I'm painting the interfering, I need to get those completely off. So I'm gonna go ahead and take both out. And then it'll just kind of slide down around the gas tank. And those are T27 as well. Okay, so now we're ready to take the outer fairing off. There's a screw in the bottom corner of each of these speaker pods. And then there's a couple on the top that I'll show you. And again, these are T27 as well. Okay, so you've got a screw here on both sides. That's a T27. And then you've got a screw here. That's a T25. So once you get those out, the fairing's ready to come off. So again, you've got 2 screws here, 2 here, 1 in each speaker pod, and then 1 at the where the little side vent fairings or whatever you want to call them are at. And then this is ready to slide off. Okay, so one thing that I forgot to do, and I'm glad I called myself, before we start unplugging connectors and all, you want to take your left saddlebag off, take the left side cover off, and pull the main fuse. Okay, at this point, we're ready to start taking everything apart inside the fairing. It's a good idea, cover your fender. You're going to be working with a lot of hardware right above it, so we don't want to scratch that. I don't have a fender cover, so we're just going to use a couple microfiber towels. And then the headlight has 6 bolts holding it in. So there's one here, one there, these 2 right here on the top, and then back inside that hole, there's one there, and then one on the other side. And they are all T30. When I'm working on parts like this, you know, this is a very expensive headlight. I like to leave the easiest ones to get to for last. That way I can, you know, just kind of hold on to it, make sure it doesn't fall. Okay, so the headlight slides out, and then there's just one connector. Okay, so all your wiring coming to the fairing comes through this center hole here under the radio and runs back along the frame, you know, to wherever it needs to go. So at this point, I think I'm ready to start unplugging everything. It can be a little bit intimidating, but all these connectors really only plug in one place. So keep that in mind. You know, take pictures if you need to as you go along, but it's not as scary as it may look. We're going to unplug the antenna that's wrapped around this. So this is like a flexible antenna. It's wrapped around this speaker pod. So we're going to unplug that directly from the radio. That way it can stay attached to the speaker pod. And then on this side, there's a GPS antenna here that's like double-sided tape to the speaker pod. So I don't want to undo that from the pod. So I'm going to trace the wire back, and it flows under here. There's a couple zip ties you'll have to cut, and then it plugs into the back of the radio somewhere up in here. So I'm going to start unplugging everything, cut the zip ties I need to cut, and try to get all the wiring loose, and then I can continue disassembly. So that blue connector up there is that GPS antenna. I don't have navigation activated on this bike, but I don't want to take this out and leave it out, you know, just in case in the future. I doubt I'll ever activate it, but, you know, just better safe than sorry. You're going to have a couple of these like Christmas tree style clips. So a good plastic pry tool that can get in behind them. We'll pull those out. And then I'm just trying to feed everything out to where it's hanging out right at this hole. That way when the inner fairing's ready to come off, it'll just slide. Everything will slide right through that hole. So that right there is everything that comes through that hole. Everything else here looks like it's just feeds from those 2 main connectors going to the radio and the speakers and everything else. So from here, everything's just going to kind of come out as it comes out. I'm going to go ahead and feed this GPS cable up through so that I can start pulling the speaker pods. Okay, so that one's ready. And then I'll go ahead and unplug the radio antenna. So that's the white plug there. So I think we're ready to pull both the speaker pods. We got a stink bug in here. So from what I can tell, there's a bolt here, and then one here, here, and here to get the speaker pods off. Oh, and it looks like there's another one up in there. So it looks like a total of 6 bolts to get that off. They all look like they're T30s, just like the headlight was. There's also, so I pointed out this bolt here, there's another one directly below it as well. See if we can snake this in here. And I dropped it. We'll find that later. And I forgot to unplug the actual speaker plug. That's got a little Christmas tree here that pops off. And then you can unplug that. Okay, so there's 7 bolts holding these on. You can see a little bit better here. There was one here, one there on the inside up here, and then the 4 that I pointed out on the other side. So to get to this lower inner bolt here, you're going to need to unplug the amp. It's got this little red tab that you push out and then push down on the black tab and just wiggle it until you get it off, and then it'll pull out of the way enough to get to that bolt. See if I can do this one without dropping it. Okay, so this brown plug up here is your USB cable that goes into your right side door there. I know that you can pull that out of that box, but I've already got it loose, so I'm just going to feed it through and not have to fool with the rubber grommet that goes into this box. To get the box that's your little cubby hole box out, there's a 7/16 bolt here. This is the lower fairing bracket. So you got to take that out, and then there's a screw here, here, and here. It looks like this one holds the door assembly and this together, but then the door assembly looks like it's fastened separately to the inner fairing up here. So I believe if you take these 3 out and this one, that whole pod should come out, and then you can take the door off afterwards. And these are T27s. Okay, so that pocket is out. While I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and take the door off. And then later I'll take the actual cover off since I'm getting it painted, I want to strip this down as far as I can for the painter, make his job as easy as possible. Okay, so as far as I can tell, we're ready to get the interfering off. We'll strip all the rest of this stuff off of it on the bench. And from what I can see, it should just be these 4 bolts here. They're 1/2 inch. So I'm going to take those off, and I believe it's ready to come off after that. All right, so it's definitely loose. We just got to feed these cables through. It'll probably be easier with 2 people, but if you get your hand in the right place, you can just kind of guide it through. And then now we've got the whole interfering off. So like I said, I'll strip all this down on the bench and we'll go over that. But we're almost there. So now that we have the interfering off, it's a lot easier to get this nacelle off. You can certainly take it off with the interfering on. I've done it when I did my riser bushings. But you know, you have your interfering right here, so you got to get in here with like a ratcheting wrench. And then when you pull these apart, there's clips that hold them together. And it takes a bit of force to get them apart, and a lot of times you'll slam into the interfering. So probably not a big deal, being that mine's not painted yet, but once it is painted, I definitely wouldn't want to do that if I don't have to. Now, that being said, if I ever need to get in here, I'm not going to take the whole fairing apart to do so. But I would probably like tape a microfiber up inside there or something just to help protect that paint. So the first thing you got to do is get this little trim piece off of where the key goes. And all you got to do is get under there with a little pry tool. And pop it up. There's just that one little clip on the back that holds it on. All right, we got the 2 screws out around the keyhole. There's one, this is like a plastic trim piece that's got a Phillips in it. All I'm doing with these needle nose is just putting a little bit of upward pressure on this as I turn it, and then pops right out. All right, all that's left for these is these bolts on the side. They're 3/8 inch. You can turn your bars a little bit, make this one easier. And then I want to have my bars straight when I pull these apart. That way I don't hit the tank with them. And you just grab it up top there and pull, and then grab in the back and pull. And then that's all. So we've got the bike all stripped down. Now I'm ready to finish stripping the interfering down. And it looks like a lot going on here, but as far as I can tell, there are 4 bolts holding this whole bracket assembly to the interfering. So I'm going to pull these 4. They're all T30s. The fairing's upside down right now. So you've got 4 T30s. We'll get those out and see where that gets us. And there you go. So that's the whole radio assembly. You don't need to unmount the amp or the radio from this bracket. And then, you know, all that cabling still stays in there as well. So from here, the interfering's almost done. All I have left is the vents. I'm not going to paint these. You can't really see them, and that would kind of be a bitch to paint anyhow. And then there's the little door catches here. So I got to figure out how to get those out, get these vents off, and then the interfering is done. So the screws holding these vents on are very small Torx. I've got a T9 here. Feels a little bit loose. It feels like it's probably a T10, but looks like it's going to work. I don't have a T10, so we're going to make this work. It's not taking a lot to get this off. There's just 3 of these on each vent. One other thing I forgot to mention was these 2 clips here. They're like those, nut clips. I don't know what you call them, but that's what I call them. So take those off as well. They're not in the way for the painter. All right, so these are the door catches. That's where the door clips into that. So just inside of the fairing, it has a tab on each side that you got to press in to get that out. All right, now that those are off, I believe I am done with this piece. So these speaker grills have this little rubber gasket around them. I'm going to pull this off because it goes right up against the edge where he's going to be painting. They're pretty easy to get off. And you should be able to easily figure out how they go back on. A little bit of like glue here that holds them in place. I don't know if it's totally necessary, but if you need to, you could probably super glue these back in or something, but most of it's just held on. It's just like a pressure fit in these tabs and all, just along this one edge where there's a little bit of glue holding it in. I'm gonna leave these plastic clips on here. They're not in the way of what's getting painted. So the less you gotta take apart and lose, the better. Okay, so I've pulled this door cover off already. I just want to see how it worked before I showed y'all. So there's this like rubbery seal thing over it. I really don't even know why it's there. It's just plastic parts that are covered up anyhow. But you got to get that off so that you can get to this little tab and pry it up. And then once you get that up, the door cover will just slide right off the front of this. So I'm going to do the same with this one. I'm going to see, now that I know what I'm doing, if I can just pop that without actually pulling that gasket material all the way off. Not sure if it's going to let me pry it far enough with that stuff on there. Doesn't look like it is, so I'm going to try something else here and just cut that right along sides of that tab. I may end up pulling this all the way off so it looks cleaner, and I can find something else to put over it or whatever, but again, I really don't know what the purpose of this stuff is. There we go. Now I got that popped up. That just slides right off. Put it back on. This is, slides right back on. It should clip right into place. And that is it. That is everything that I want to get painted. So I'll get it all spread out here and kind of show you everything. So there it is, guys. That's everything that I want to paint. This took me maybe an hour to strip everything down. It's really not bad. I know it can be intimidating tearing into the fairing on your bike. But, do a little bit of research ahead of time. If you want to watch my video, share it with some other people that are trying to do this. I think I covered everything. But we've got the windshield or vent trim here and here, the windshield brackets, the little cubby door covers, the speaker covers, the nacelle or riser clamshell, and then obviously the inner fairing. So we're going to get all that painted gloss black. I'll bring y'all back along when I get those parts back from the painter. But that is it for today. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you hit the like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.